Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and just as we finished a deep dive into Celtic's Champions League opponents for the upcoming group stage campaign, we have some news on Celtic's squad for the Champions League group stage campaign. The official squad that we'll use throughout the group stage has been confirmed by UEFA, with a couple of shock omissions that we maybe didn't expect. So, let's talk about that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated as we now try and go on that road to 50,000 subscribers. So go down below, it's absolutely free. Press like, press subscribe, and you'll go a long way in helping the channel. Thank you all so much. So the excitement is building. The Champions League is almost here. We are 1 week away from kick-off when Celtic head to Rotterdam to take on Feyenoord. It's a huge game. It will set the tone for what we should maybe expect in this Champions League group stage campaign. And obviously it's a group that we're all really excited for, because it's a group that's been a little bit nicer to us in comparison to recent years. So we have analysed each team. If you haven't already, make sure to go and check out my deep dive series where we analyse each of the sides we'll face. But today we got the news on which players will be taking part in this Champions League group stage campaign. So over the past couple of hours, the news has started breaking. It's hitting the shelves now on the Celtic squad that they have picked and registered for this forthcoming Champions League campaign. A 25-man squad, which was going to be really difficult to pick. We have a bloated squad. We know that there is a few extra names than what you'd ideally like to have. And of course, in the Champions League, you've also got to meet that homegrown criteria. You've got to have 25 players, yes, but 8 of those players have to be trained in Scotland. 4 from the club, which is Celtic, and 4 outside the club in Scotland as well. So it's a bit of a tough one. That's 8 spaces that automatically go towards players who are homegrown, and then you've only got those remaining spots to play with. And when you have a bloated squad like ours, that becomes difficult, which has led to a few shock omissions. Some of the headlines that you've already seen, the likes of Mike Nawrocki, he has been left out of the Champions League side despite being one of our most expensive signings in the summer transfer window. We'll talk all about that. But yeah, we do know our 25-man squad. We know the depth that we get to play with in this group stage. So let's have a look at it. So going through area by area in the side, this is the squad that we have registered for the Champions League this season. Now, excuse UEFA for putting a couple of players in the wrong areas. You see straight away, like David Turnbull is down as a forward. Just try and ignore it. But this is the side we've registered. We're only taking 2 goalkeepers. Joe Hart and Scott Bain make up the 2. The defenders consist of Alistair Johnston, Greg Taylor, Gustav Lagerbielke, Liam Scales, Nat Phillips, Cameron Carter-Vickers, Anthony Ralston and Stephen Welsh. Midfielders, Real Hatate, Luis Palma, Liela Bada, Odin Thiago Holm, Yang, Tomoki Awata, Paulo Bernardo, Matt O'Reilly, Callum McGregor and James Forrest. As for the forwards, we have O Kyogo, Dyson Maeda, Mikey Johnson, and as I've mentioned, David Turnbull down in there. So a few players all over the place there. I'm going to try and simplify it for you right now. And this is the squad depth look of what we are using in the Champions League this season, position by position. This is what we've decided to take. So you've got your 25 players, your 8 locally trained players. Players trained by the club are in green, players trained in the nation are blue. And as you can see, this is the kind of makeup of our 25-man squad. Defensively, we lack depth in one certain area, specific area, sorry, and I'll talk about that soon. But Greg Taylor is the only recognised left back that we are taking. Aside from that, we do have depth in every position. We've got 2 players basically everywhere. Ralston is there. We've got a couple of extra centre halves. We've obviously got a lot of centre midfielders, and we've got wingers in depth, and all being the backup striker. So we do basically have our strongest 11. A couple of notable omissions that we are going to speak about, but there's your 25-man squad. Just to throw it back up on screen for a moment, it really puts into perspective how much of an influence the homegrown quota does have on this. Because I tell you right now, I think that in the year 2023, there is no way that the likes of Mikey Johnson and James Forrest should probably be registered as Champions League players for us. They need to be there though, and I think that's a real call for us to hurry up and try and start developing some better youth players, because we might run into problems in the next few years. Forrest is getting older, coming towards probably the end of his career. Mikey Johnston is injured. He probably won't even be fit to play any games, yet he's still being registered over the likes of Nawrocki and other guys as well, and he's someone who probably doesn't have much of a future at Celtic. So the fact that they're registered and having to make this homegrown quota does show you how much importance it does hold over this, because as soon as you start losing a homegrown player, you lose a total amount of players that you can have in your squad. So yeah, that is the overall squad that we've got there. Pretty happy with it. We landed ourselves in a good position, I think, coming towards the end of the transfer window in regard to squad depth, but there definitely is areas that we need to speak about, and obviously omissions that we need to speak about. Mike Nawrocki will not play in any of the group stage games in Europe this season, which is a massive gutter, and I'd imagine for him it's really disappointing. Listen, Nawrocki's in an unfortunate situation where this injury is going to keep him out for another month or so. He's most likely going to miss the opening 2, possibly 3 games in the Champions League group stages. I understand why he's been left out the squad, wasting a spot when we could bring someone else in elsewhere. When he's going to miss those first 3 games, it makes sense to give his spot away. I'd imagine he's probably very understanding about it. However, it still has gotten that by the time he's fit and back in this team, when he could have something to do in those last few games, he won't be able to. It shows the faith that Brendan Rodgers is putting in the other centre-halves. It shows that he's putting faith in Nat Phillips to join Cameron Carter-Vickers when he's back. It shows that he's putting faith in the likes of Gustav Lagerbielke and now Liam Scales. But I am gutted that Nawrocki does miss out, because he's one of our new signings. We've spent £5 million on him. He would have been, for me, the nailed-on partner for Cameron Carter-Vickers heading into this group stage campaign, and now he won't even play in the group stage campaign. So it's a real turn of events that he's not involved. Now, people will be saying, well, how come we've registered him, not registered him, but we've registered Cameron Carter-Vickers when he's in the same situation? The difference is Cameron Carter-Vickers' known quality cannot be missed out on, even if it's for 1 game. Even if Vickers was only going to be fit for the last game, I still think he would have been registered. He's one of the first names in the team sheet and has been for the past 2 years. Whereas Nawrocki, we've seen very little of. So him missing out on this probably allows him to come back in without the pressure of playing in these games. It allows him to come back in and play on a week-to-week basis in the Premiership when he does come back. Whereas Cameron Carter-Vickers, when he's back, we'll need him for these games. We know that. I think that him and Phillips will do just fine. I think that him and Lagerbielke could do just fine as well. There is no real rush to get Nawrocki in, and I know a lot of people are disappointed and complaining that he's not here, and some people will probably start conspiring that maybe Rodgers doesn't like him or he isn't good enough. It's nothing to do with that. Rodgers will probably speak about it in his press conference this week, but he's injured, and it's just unfortunate timing for him. And I can fully understand trying to prioritise getting players in other positions and just leaving him out for this group stage. Another notable omission, Alexandro Bernabei. He has not been registered, which for me really does say a lot about his Celtic future. Now, I know we've been banging on how Greg Taylor hasn't been great to start this campaign and how maybe Bernabei deserves a chance, but I think him being left out, I really do think that it probably speaks volumes as to what Brendan Rodgers thinks about him in regards to if he's good enough or not. The fact that Scales is in ahead of him, which Scales deserves to be after his performance at Ibrox, but the fact we're now in that position, I think that really shows what Bernabei's situation is with Celtic. Yeah, we'll probably see him domestically come on for wee spells every now and then, 10 minutes at the end of each game perhaps. But the fact he's not registered in here, and we're now going in with one identified left back, that for me says everything. But that's also a big problem. We should never have been in this position, going in with one left back. Now, yeah, I know you'll be screaming at me, Scales can play left back, Scales can play left back. We've seen Scales play at left back. in a European competition. It was in the Conference League. It was against Bodo Glimt, and it went horribly wrong. I don't think he's a natural left back. I think that he's a better as a centre half for Celtic, but at least he can play left back should we need it. But now we're just relying on Taylor to stay fit, and we're relying on Taylor to get better, because he's not started the season all that well. But now this is massive for him. This Champions League group stage is going to be huge, and the pressure is on him. There's no denying that, because people will get on his back. We know how good he can be, and I hope that he shows that through this group stage. Ultimately, I just hope he stays fit. But I think it's a real kind of eye-opener to both Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic board that money does need to be spent in that area. We need to sign someone in January that's a left-back. Greg Taylor can't be the only option, and Liam Scales shouldn't be the backup option. So, yeah, another notable omission, but one that I think might speak volumes for Bernabei's career. And finally, the other two big omissions were both summer signings, and they come in the form of Kwon and Marco Tilio. Those two guys have been left out the squad. Once again, Tilio in a very similar situation to Mike Nawrocki, where he's been injured. He's not even played a minute for Celtic yet, and I can understand why he's not been registered. I'm sure him himself will probably understand why he's not been registered. There'd be no point wasting a spot there, especially on the right wing, where we do have Abada, we have Yang, and we have James Forrest. Bringing Tilio would have probably been a bit of a mistake in this campaign anyway. Let him get fit, ease him back into things, see where we are with him. I've heard some great reviews about him recently from folk who watched him of his time in the A-League, some people who were very excited to see him in the Champions League, but we're just going to have to wait for that. There was no point in wasting a spot this season on someone who's not kicked a ball yet, and we really don't know their quality. Kwon, once again, another player which this might speak volumes for the future of their Celtic career. How often are we going to see Kwon in a Celtic shirt? I don't think very often. And I don't like to just... I'm not one of these ones who's put him in a grave 45 minutes into a friendly and said that he's never going to be good enough. But I think that there is quite an easy judgment to make in saying that he's maybe not up to scratch yet. And that needs to come with time, whether it be through a loan move or just development through the B team, or, it's just not ready for him yet. A Champions League is probably a step way too far for him, and I'm not surprised that he's been left out. Now, I hope he does come good. I'd love to see him be, like every player at Celtic, someone who can contribute and be a big player for us. Was it going to be in the Champions League this season? No, he was probably one of the first names that a lot of people had wrote off their 25-man squad. So, yeah, maybe not so surprising on the Kwon and Tilio front. I think they both have reasons for not being involved, but it is two summer signings who aren't in the Champions League squad. To put a spin on things more positively, though, there are a couple of guys in there who now have massive opportunities. Guys like Liam Scales, who I would never have expected to be involved with Celtic this season, let alone the Champions League squad. And it's massive for him, because if he does have to step up, and listen, he probably will have to step up in the first game or so, that is a huge opportunity and a very positive opportunity for him to maybe show quality or worth to this side. So there are definitely positives in some players being involved that we maybe didn't expect, but yeah, big omissions. I'm really gutted that Nawrocki's managed to miss out, but there's not much you can do about it. It means that we now know what we're playing with in regards to previewing our starting 11s and predicting what we're going to see. I think that the strongest 11 on paper is pretty much concrete for everybody. So come next week, depending on fitness situations and who's going to be back from injury and who's not, I think that you could probably pick the starting 11 yourself. But we'll wait and see. We are now only a week away. A week today we take on Feyenoord. So it's all very exciting. It's good that the squad is here. And yeah, bring it on. I cannot wait. Like and subscribe. I'll see y'all next time.